like to enjoy a Rusty Brown's ring?
Yo, what's up people, it's your boy P, also known as Captain P67. We're back here today for another crazy god build for you. So as you can see from the footage and the clips included previously, this is my Queen of the Sacrifice build. I've been making this live on stream for the last couple of weeks now. I've been tweaking it, modding it and changing it. Kept on getting questions every day about the build, and people asked me to release the build, and I said I'll definitely release it as soon as it's finished or I feel it's viable. So without further ado, all the footage you saw was at 1000 corruption plus. We one-shot everything in the game, one-shot all the exile mages, tier 4 dungeons, bosses get melted. So what I'll do is I'll link in the descriptions below for you, or the comments, the videos, the actual full mono clears, boss fights if you haven't seen those before, but it literally is just that destructive. And as you can see from the footage, the crits and everything else is just crazy. So what we'll do is I'll quickly get into all the specs of the build, everything in general, and at the very end I'll show you some extra stuff as well, just to explain a bit more. But yeah, let's get into it. So yeah, here first and foremost we'll go off with the gear. So we're going for the helmet, we're going for the Bone Claymore Barbute. We got 4 Rip Blood in there, which is a tier 7, and we also get health regen. Great helmet overall, scales with the intelligence as well, and plus that ward. So we will be stacking up some necrotic resistance. If you can see the last bit where it says 1 ward per second per 3% uncapped necrotic resistance. On my amulet, I went for a strong mind to kind of more for like endgame, because we are running at a very high corruption, and at the same time we definitely can go higher easily because we're blitzing through each corruption unit 1000 plus. 30 seconds every mission's taken, and we can easily get through more. So we've included this for like stun avoidance, if you can see, extra mana as well. Cast a small lightning explosion when you are stunned. As an LP4, went for more physical penetration, which does more damage. Crit strike multiplier again, armor shred as well. Lightning resistance is included, plus lightning spell damage. However, when I've been using my spells, it says it includes it with spells. I don't really see it proccing, so I don't know if it's bugged or not, but just a little disclaimer right there. And as far as the main weapon, we've gone for the Wrong Warp, one of my favourite weapons in the game, and I've told people how much I love this, and I've been using this for a hot minute prior to launch as well. But Wrong Warp is just absolutely phenomenal. So if you've not tried this weapon, definitely get it. If you're using Transplant or Teleport, which we are using Transplant, you basically become invincible for 1 second. So you get 1 second of immunity. If you read the white text under the spell damage. So when you teleport or transplant, you become teleported near to a random nearby location, will become immune to all damage for 1 second, and you gain Chrono Warp for 10 seconds. Chrono Warp grants 35% increased cast speed and movement speed, so it buffs you, but it also freezes people. So when you cast teleport or transplant, you time lock up enemies to around 1 second, and not only does it freeze them, but my cooldown for this is 3.1 seconds. So you basically got invincibility for 1 second, and then 2.1 seconds is, you've got it back after that. So you're invincible again, and you like stun lock them as well. Works on bosses, works on elites, works on the minions, absolutely phenomenal. I have rolled a crit strike multiplier and a spell damage on there as well. The rest of the stats you can go through, and the gear. If you want it more in-depth description, I'll cover that on my Twitch streams. I stream on Twitch every day, so if you want this covered more in-depth, I'll try and make this as quick as I can because there's a lot to go through. But yeah, just join the Twitch streams and I'll go for anything else that. But the main thing is with this, like I said, this just will buff you. Your spell damage will go higher when you obviously use it. So if you see the last but one text, 3% increased spell damage per increased movement speed. We've got quite a lot of movement speed. We get even more. And let's just say off base, we've got 52% movement speed. So that'll scale our spell damage. We've also got 1000 spell damage on this build as well. And I'll get into that for you as well. As far as the chest piece gone, we've got the Acolyte's Profane Regalia Purity. It's giving us some armor, some crit chance for the minions. Intelligence 17 for scales for the build as well as the minions, so it's super good. Plus extra crit chance for ourselves as well as the minions again, which is another bonus. Necrotic resistance will scale with that ward, bone clamor, barbute helmet, which I talked about. Additional health, absolutely, because it's definitely going to convert for you on a low life sort of build as well. The more health you get, the better. We've also got increased physical spell critical strike chance, which is also bleed, which is physical as well. So again, it all scaled. So it's like pretty much a god roll on that chest piece. On the offhand, we've gone for imbued chronoblade of insulation. Offhand, 17 intelligence to scale the build up in general. Mana spent gained as ward. So not only do we spend a lot of mana, and we also get a lot of mana gained as ward. So that's the bonus about it. We spend a lot of mana, we get more ward for it. On average, some of the fights can go up to 10,000 ward. The longer the fights go, we actually get more ward the longer the fight goes. We get up to about 20,000 ward. But on average, I'll go through all that with you as well. So spell damage, we've got a tier 7 on there, 140. We've got some extra cast speed, 17%. Elemental resistance, we have capped all the resistances and the crit strike avoidance, which I'll go through you as well. But that's included, and 22 ward per second. As far as rings goes, we've got volatile zombies as the main anyway. So we are using cyclically putrescence, which gives you necrotic resistance, which scales what I mentioned before, plus some extra ward decay threshold, which helps out with a lot of bonuses. I slammed a 12 intelligence plus elemental resistance on there, so perfect roll there. And spell damage would increase for your minions, as well as soon as your volatile zombies do blow up the screen, then they come back and come back with just half the amount of the zombies left. So basically, it gets divided by 100%. I just got some people come through the chats as well. All right, welcome. And yeah, so in regards to cyclic putrescence, 6 volatile zombies come out, then it turns to 3, then it turns to 1. But then when the 1 procs, they keep kind of recycling over and over. It's kind of unlimited volatile zombies. So you got the stats on that as well. As far as the belt goes, 1 for Thornslinger. You get 1 to all physical skills, so we get an additional physical skill on there, which comes under the sacrifice, I believe, as well as the transplant. So it says physical on the tags, so we get extra points in there. And then on top of that, we've got chance to bleed. We are doing bleed anyway. We've got more movement speed, which scales with the wrong warp stats. So the more speed we get, which I mentioned earlier, that will scale with that. On this LP4 slam I got was physical damage, which would bleed. We've got more minion damage, which scales again with the rest of the volatile zombies. And I've also got some vanguards, including other stuff too. And crit strike avoidance, again, is capped at 100%. And increased cooldown recovery speed is very, very important if you can get that on there. I've rolled a tier 5 on here. And where I mentioned the transplant being so low, you're basically invincible, apart from that 2.1 seconds. So as long as you can keep dodging or stay alive for 2.1 seconds, you can literally run any corruption you need to, and you're super safe because you're invincible for that pause. And while you're doing that, volatile zombies will hit them and kill them. You'll get ward and you'll stack up and so forth. But that is very important if you can stack that. As far as another ring we've got the red ring of Atlaria, and it's got increased movement speed, which again scales with the build, which I already mentioned to you. 5 to all attributes, resistances are covered. Health regen important for more like endgame survivability. Mana regen, again, just to make sure you don't have any mana issues. I have no mana issues with this build whatsoever. And again, we're running at 1000 plus corruption, super easy. And we've also got dodge rating involved as well. So not only we've got high defensive tankiness, we've got invincibility frames, we've got movement, and if for any reason we do actually take a physical hit with additional dodge rating, sometimes you can dodge 1 or 2 critical attacks as well, which is another bonus on top. As far as gloves goes, we've got Scholar, Crusader, going to the deflection. We got 80 extra armor, plus 37 void resistance. Intelligence scales, got a god roll on this, to be honest with you. We got 16, which is tier 7. Minion damage again with scale with the build. Fizz res, part of the resistances go. Extra health again, which gets converted to ward. And if you read the part, 11% of current health lost per second. 11% of missing health gained as ward per second as well. Now, if you can get some sort of health regen involved, it's so crazy because your ward's always going to stack and keep going higher. And the more HP you get, the more ward's going to go up. Because you got health regen, you can keep stacking it. So I've rolled that kind of specifically just for that helmet, as well as the additional spell damage. And as far as boots goes, we've got the Mercurial Solarium Greaser Lucidity. So we've got more armor, more movement speed again, which scales, fire resistance to the resistances, 25% increased movement speed, intelligence will scale the build. I mentioned how important cooldown recovery speed is, and that's including the boots, so you can get those on the boots as well. So if you can't seem to proc it on your belt, try and get it on your boots because it will help out. And again, that is a global cooldown, it's not just for transplant. My volatile zombies, it says 7.3, might actually be lower though, and a few of my other abilities as well. Forget off here real quick. So it will scale with your Lich, your sacrifice, everything else in between. That's 5.4, and the Reap, that's 7.3, and that's still 3.1. But yeah, if you can get that included, make sure you get that included as best as you can. And what's really important about the build is as well, these experimental boots are more important to have. If you have it without these, it's not as potent, I'd say. Not only do we get increased minion damage, but 8 minions teleport around, you have to use traversal skill. So when we use transplant, we get extra minions and they actually explode. So it's kind of cool how we can play. We can do normal rip blood and normal volatile zombies will blow up the screen. However, if I transplant into a group, a pack, you'll get a lot of explosions. And I got some more which I'll go into the skills with you as well. So try and get that as best as you can. And last but not least, in the gear, we got Twisted Heart of Vukeros. Absolutely godly. However, you can use the Acolytes Erased as well, the other relic for the Acolyte specifically, which, depending on the stats you get, can be as good, if not better than this. And I was looking around, but I really wanted to do one with this Twisted Heart first. However, if you can get the Acolytes, the Erased one, and 16 intelligence or close to that, definitely you could go with that if you can't get hold of one of these. But on this, I ended up slamming a 16 intelligence against scale at the damage, elementals cap the resistances, 12% increased health, which will get converted to ward, which is definitely beneficial for your build. And because we're using necrotic and elemental skills per se, we're going to get more ward back. Plus you get 1 to necrotic and elemental on top of that skill, so additional skills. 14 strength, which will scale the armor and the strength for you. And we also get an additional 12% increased cast speed, which is phenomenal. And scales everything for you. Now we'll quickly go over to the idols. So as far as idols go, if you can get as much health and HP, that would be beneficial to scale your main base HP into ward. On this currently I'm sitting on about 1720 HP base, but as I'm just sitting here, it's about 3.5k ward minimum. But with just proccing volatile zombies, we get to 4,000 ward and it'll just keep stacking. And the more zombies I kill or more I res and get, there you go, 5,000. You just keep stacking and stacking and stacking. This is why the build's pretty crazy. But yeah, as much HP as you can, get that stacked in there. What I've also got in my build as well is Mark for Death, which is absolutely phenomenal. So if you know what Mark for Death is, when it procs an enemy, it curses them for 8 seconds and it reduces all the resistances by 25%. So that's global again. So just because we've got mainly physical, I've got other ailments on this build. Those will proc and work for that as well. So if you can include that, it's better for your build. It's better for any sort of universal type damage. More health here. Increase health ward retention, very important. And another thing is for crowd control, I've also included fear. So where I mentioned Mark for Death, we also have fear. So wherever you see some big elites coming with big attacks and certain boss types characters about to hit you with a big attack, if you can just hit them, you can proc them with fear. They actually walk off and it cancels animation. So fear is definitely a great crowd control if you can get that. It's absolutely phenomenal. Now this is the bonus part of the build as well. Where it says 69% increased damage while transformed, it's absolutely insane. So I'll just double check this for you. So I mentioned another one is we've also got Plague in the build and 6% less damage taken over time. Now where it says 69% increased damage while transformed, look at my base stats for example. So say for example my transplant of base, just standing still with no buffs is 52k, sacrifice is 23k, and it will go over rip bloody 69k. Well, yeah, 6.9k. Now, when we transform, watch the stats, 92,000, and that says 60, but it should go up to like 200 plus. It says 80 there now as well. But every time basically we're transformed and we're in Lich mode, everything's just going to increase. Now you can see 240. But there's so many buffs on the build, so it just goes absolutely crazy. So I'm just going to wait till this reap comes back one more time, so I'll just show you. So again, so if we're off 52 off base and 55, 52, 52 and 6.9, and as soon as we change to this, watch the stats go up, 70k. And again, because we're proccing more stuff on the build, you'll see more procs and effects. I'll show that more towards the end of the video. So next we're going to get onto the blessings though, and I'll explain a bit more to it. So as far as blessings go, this is good for boosting your character in the first place. This is the first boss or the first echo you do. Always make sure you get extra XP, but it's not essential once you've got it leveled up. This is relic drop rate. So if you do want to get better drop of those relics, you can get that up as well. And this is very, very important. So as far as you go to blessings on the Black Sun, crit strike multiplier, we've got the max roll on this one. So we've got 40 additional. So that will make the sacrifice do more crits overall. And one drops get your better ones and your wrong warps if you got this, so it's another blessing there. Now mana, again, you can have more mana, so we have no mana issues anyway, but we've got additional mana in case we did run a bit low for any reason. base mana though of mine is 454, so we got quite a lot of mana on the build, which is pretty awesome. And next one is two-handed spear shard. So again, it's not essential, it's just something I probably clicked at the time, got a good roll for it, we don't need it, but pick whatever you want, or if something you're specifically farming for any tune or character, get that. Now this is very, very, very important. Rain of Dragons, crit strike avoidance. You want your crit strike avoidance 100%, and I'll show all the stats for you at the end. But this is very important. You kind of go up to 70% on the max roll, but we got 68, so we're more than happy with that, especially with the belt I've got as well. Again, gloves, shard drop rate, not really important. This is very, very, very important. If you do not get this, you will be losing quite a bit of DPS, since you can only get it from the blessing as well. So 50% chance to shred physical resistance on hit, and that is your own hit. And we got a lot of cast speed, so we're kind of procking that every single time. But that's very important. That goes up to 50% as well. I've tried and tested it at like under 30, and it's not that good. So try and get to like 45 minimum. Don't be lazy with it. Try and get 45 and above. You should definitely see a massive impact. And last but not least, make sure you get frailty, because again, it's good having this offense stuff, but if you haven't got no defense to your build, it's not going to be as good. Well, frailty is definitely important. You can easily get off the blessing. Max roll is 60. I did try and run it at the lower end of things, and because we've got such fast cast speed and walls hitting, 49 is more than survivable. But if you want to get it higher, you can obviously, and proc more if you need to. Now we'll get over to the skills. We've gone over the blessings and we go over the other stuff, and I'll make sure everything on the screen is available for you to see. So I guess we'll go off transplant first. There isn't any skills covered up with the camera. There is one in the bottom left, but I'll go through that and you can see that as well. But again, you can just join the Twitch streams if you want more in-depth knowledge of the build itself. But in regards to transplant, we've gone for this. So we leave a pool of blood that slows enemies. Very, very important for crowd control, since we're running very high corruption and you want that, and it procs all the time. It's amazing. Or haste duration and frenzy, again, absolutely phenomenal. And this scales with your wrong warp for that damage, so we got constant haste. Because our transplant is 3.1, every time we proc it, we get this for 3 seconds, and it buffs our wrong warp and our spell damage increases crazily. That's why we have 1,000 spell damage. But because it's 3.1, after the 3.1 seconds gone, you can just re-proc it. So you just keep re-procking transplant over and over, and you keep getting your buffs. So it's pretty much unlimited haste, unlimited frenzy, and pretty much survivability as well. This one, it creates additional body detonation and roll, so it's more damage. This gives you bone curse around the damage, which is just super dope for like more damage, more multipliers in general. This causes you more damage and curse, and you can get health gained versus bone cursed, ward gained per spirit plague. We haven't got really spirit plague per se, but we've got health gain versus bone curse, so we've got a lot of health and HP, survivability, as well as crowd control. We've got a lot of cast speed boost here as well, cooldown recovery speed. Now this is a great one. Your minions deal additional melee damage for 4 seconds after you cast transplant. I've also got additional minions on my build, so they actually do more damage and more everything overall. And it all stacks, it all scales, as you can see in the footage. This is good for armor in general, and also gives you another damage reduction. So additional 300 armor, less damage taken 12%, and this actually lasts for 4 seconds, which is great. We can extend it though, which we have done. So we got bone armor's more effective, 20% more effective with that. And then because we've got bone armor lasts longer, additional 3 seconds. So technically we got 7 seconds of this buff, for example, and the cooldown is 10 seconds. So if you include the downtime of it, so without 3 seconds you won't have that. But don't forget, our transplant is 3.1, so we're also going to get the other additional buffs and stats with it as well. One thing I didn't quickly mention though is as well, I have hit well over like 200 stats on this builder per se, global stats. So with this red ring, if you do hit 180 attributes, you get a 10% damage reduction as well. So that's something definitely to look into if you are struggling for survivability in any build in the game whatsoever. And then yeah, as I was getting to it, when you actually use transplant, this is another cool thing. You actually behind a bone minion, which is phenomenal. And you also perform sacrifice when you cause transplant. So where I mentioned I could use transplant into a group of enemies, if there's already a minion there, it'll explode and cause more damage. And if there's not a minion there, you'll proc into him and proc a bone minion. So if you see this smaller minion here, normally procs off transplant, as well as zombies. Right, so it's bringing out some of the skeletal vanguards, but sometimes it brings out this one. So there you go. See the smaller red one there? This one. So it also procs that. But no matter when I'm using transplant, I've always got minions. That's the best thing about it, and that's the whole point. So no matter what, we've always got minions with this build, and we've always got something to explode or sacrifice. That's the whole point. That's why it's the Queen of Sacrifice build. And then second foremost, second skill we'll get into is Rip Blood super quick. So this one is just phenomenal for a few reasons. You get global spell damage, which I will show you the 1000 spell damage you got, but this will buff your whole global spell damage. For buff is for 6 seconds. It doesn't say what it caps to, but the more cast speed you got, the better you can get. And then over here, we want to change everything to necrotic, which is phenomenal. Also with this, blood orbs, which is this part of the tree. So when you do a lot of hits, you get blood orbs back. It also gives you, grants you health, and it's equal to the half they would restored. And we get an additional amount with that as well, so you can check into that. This does more damage overall. This is cast speed, so we want to get as much cast speed as we can. So we've got 30 here, we've got an additional 5 here, and the minions also prioritize the target. So if you want to specify who you want to target, if you want to focus on like a more of elite at the time, you can just hit them with your Rip Blood, and they'll go straight for that target, kill those, and you kind of control the crowd better as well on the board. We've also got cast speed additional in here as well, so as you can see, we just scale hella cast speed. Bleed chance here as well, more damage, more ailments, which is a bleed damage per se, and it all scales with that. Blood orbs also grant additional health, and blood orbs return faster, more HP, more survivability. Then one into this, which is very important. Blood orbs restore more health based on your intelligence stat. We are sitting on a base of 164 intelligence, so it's just super, super good if you go for that as well. And just scale it with your intelligence. Also, Mana Feast. This build can be mana hungry, but we're super blessed with our mana. We never have any issues whatsoever because of this setup. Blood orbs now also grant you mana when you directly cast Rip Blood. So we get mana gained mana gained this 9, so it's +3 on this skill. So that will cover that for you. And as well as some volatile zombies, this I've tried and tested everything, and I think this is literally the perfect setup for what I've done. So we start off with this. We got extra damage over here, more movement speed. Over here we got more movement speed per missing health. So the longer they're alive, they're losing more HP. They move even faster to get to the target. They will die. They will actually give you ward, get your HP back, and it's just really cool. It all synergizes perfectly. And I mentioned the vanguards as well. So where we got the minion melee damage and stuff, the other buff from the Rip Blood, explosion deals damage in a large area. When a zombie dies, it creates skeletal vanguard. So when a zombie dies, it creates a vanguard in its place. That vanguard then does melee damage, causes physical damage. You can then sacrifice that vanguard, do more damage. When you sacrifice that vanguard after the zombie's exploded and died, you get ward from the zombie, you get ward from the vanguard, and you get ward from the bone minion as well, and you cause sacrifice and damage. We've gone, so the zombies actually do like a slam dunk, which just looks really cool. There's animation with this, and they do crazy damage. It's awesome. And then this as well. When a zombie dies, you have a chance to sacrifice on a nearby minion. So when one minion explodes, another one will explode, and another one, and it's just like a super chain reaction. And it's just constant explosions across the screen, which constantly gives you ward, constantly gives you HP, and just scales your build. And then we also got here, so explosion deals more damage in a larger area. And this one also heals you. So where I mentioned the volatile zombies explode and give you ward, they die, give you HP, which does convert into ward also with this. And this is why I mentioned the ward part. Necromantic Fervor now grants ward rather than health. The amount of ward gained is not affected by increased healing effectiveness. So regardless whether it's increased by healing effectiveness or not, whenever the zombies die, we're going to get HP, which converts to ward, as I've explained. And over here is mana efficiency. We've got summoning speed as well. This causes stun chance. So a lot of the build as well is pretty cool. Whenever we only hit any enemies, we also stun them a lot. Same with bosses. We just end up stunning our targets. They get stunned, they're locked, they can't move. Ron warp stuns up for that second as well, and then we just kill them. It's that quick every time. And this gives us more zombies per cast, which is just phenomenal. So we get 6 total zombies on the screen, which I've already mentioned. Divided that by into 3 on the cycle of putrescence, and then the 1. But regardless, we've always got zombies happening, things happening on the screen. However, what's also dope about the sacrifice, it works on these parasites. So not only do we get the zombies coming out, when the zombies die, they bring parasites and vanguards. You can sacrifice vanguards, you can sacrifice the parasites. Then you'll have a chance to summon more volatile zombies, and the cycle just keeps going. So it's just a constant threat against any enemies you go against. That's why it's just an amazing god tier build. Now, in regards to reperform, this one I'd say is very essential. You got cast speed again, which scales with the build, your damage and everything. You got swiftness on kill. You can proc more into this. If you get more reperform, you can get more damage with this flat. But I've spread this out and used this, and I'll explain it why in a second. But even with 2 into here, you get 50% chance. Well, 50% increased damage, increased crit chance also, and it's just a great node to proc into. Then we moved across from here. So while in reperform, you did increased damage, but you have reduced healing effectiveness. So if I didn't proc into that, I just went into that. So we get 20% increased damage as well on top of that. And then on over here, we moved on to here, which is just another insane way to keep in reperform. On most of my runs, 99% I am always in reperform. If I'm not, it's because I missed a potion and this is the way the build will work that way. So health drain gets negated, negative 40%. We also do increase damage over time, which scales the build. We also included Reap in the build, so I've actually got 2 traversal skills with this, which is definitely night and day when you only have one. When you only have one traversal skill at very, very high in corruption, if you do that one dodge attack and you got a spam attacks coming at you, you're pretty much dead, unless you got like wrong warp or something else you can proc. But having 2 traversal skills gives you that additional movement, positioning, everything on top. So I've included that with this, and the Reap cooldown recovery speed is that, which I showed you before at 5.4 seconds. And now with this one, Reap has a much longer cooldown, but no longer shares a cooldown with Transplant, and that's why I have 2 traversal skills. So we use a Reap, and then we use that. So that will always be 3.1 no matter what, whether in Reap form or not. And then when that kicks in, you saw the cooldown reduction for that also as well. And let's get back into this quickly. And yeah, these are really important also. Whereas I mentioned intelligence scales, you get armor per point of intelligence, and it's +4. So if you see how we got 164 intelligence, that will scale with that right there. I would definitely recommend putting as high as you can. 4 is perfect, but if you obviously are struggling, just make sure you get a couple of points in at least. But you have to get 3 to get to this. Now, this is another one. Where I mentioned resistances should be capped. We've got all our resistances capped. However, if you look on here now, this one is 49. The others are all fully capped though, and slightly higher. However, when we go into Reaper mode, we do a lot of buffs. So now it's gone to 230, and Necrotic has gone to 394. So that is covered that as well. So make sure you proc into that if you need to get that. And this one, I would definitely recommend. Where I mentioned you want to be in Lich form most of the time, with this, 99% of the time we are in Lich form, because every time we have a potion, we have double the health. So while in Reaper form, potions grant twice as much health as normal, meaning you won't get to the 0 point where you revert back to non-Lich form. So as long as you take a potion, it lasts longer, it just scales with that, so it's absolutely amazing. And then last but not least, I've tried and tested several versions of this, but I found some extra cool stuff. And whereas I mentioned the belt, you can, if you can get that belt, you can get this additional skill. So with this, sacrifice, libation, you want 4 into this. I did try it at 5 and sacrifice and chain more targets. But when you do anything more than 4, it does seem to, like, even though we don't have any mana issues whatsoever, it doesn't seem to proc correctly sometimes. And it doesn't give the bonuses for some reason. And I think 4 is just perfect. So we sacrifice 4 additional chain targets. So it's 5 explosion minimum. And then you got the additional explosion with the transplant if you transplant into them with minions there as well. You also get 52 bleed chance. You sacrifice chains 2 targets. That's 1 out of 1. But the mana cost is additional. But again, it's just done perfectly, I believe. Necrotic Audience, damage with 3 minions, 18%, and area with 3 minions, plus 90%. So whether you got 1 minion, 2 or 3, you're always doing damage, but you can scale it more with additional minions. We also get increased area, increased stun chance, which I mentioned, stun chance, where you kind of stun lock enemies. Sacrifice deals more damage with each minion you can currently control, multiplicative with other modifiers, 4.5%. So we could have like a ton of like zombies around us, which will make more damage go, or we could have one, but it's always going to scale regardless. And then this one, sacrifice deals additional fire damage, which is amazing. This is just a flat more and more damage. And since we don't have any mana issues, we've gone for a full 5. Even though it's a bit of extra cost, it doesn't make any difference. Now, this is very, very important. So sacrifice deals more damage against bleeding enemies. It's a flat 45%, which is hella damage. And since we're bleeding with our own skills off the Rip Blood, even when you see that node over here, we got bleeding to there. So we're causing bleed, our minions are causing bleed, our vanguards can cause bleed, and anything our minions hits, it causes bleed as well. So that will definitely scale, so you definitely want that. If, however, you can get this one where your minions have a lot of HP and you stack more minion HP than anything, for any reason, you don't have to with this build because you are sacrificing a lot of minions, but for any reason you just get lucky and you do get more additional health, you could proc into this with additional skills, which will cause even more damage, which again is 15% on each proc, so that'll be up to 60%. Now, this is what I found is super awesome in the build. Because we had an additional skill to put in, with no extra skills on the base, this alone sacrifices a chance to ignite enemies, and ignite inflicts has additional fire penetration. Now, in regards to resistances marked for death, reducing every enemy's resistances, this does additional fire penetration, so the damage is literally ludicrous. We do mega bleed damage, we also do mega fire damage with this. We also have better crowd control, ignite on the enemies as well. So if you can proc into that, I definitely recommend you proc into that. Now, what I'll do is, I think that's all the skills covered for you, and I think everything was available for you to see. So I don't think there's anything missed on there. Yeah, you can see everything in there, bar this one, which is Mana Feast, so you can see that. But again, you can just join the Twitch stream if you can't see anything that's available, but everything should be available for you to see. We'll double check those. Yep, everything's good. And this one. Yeah, so everything's visible for you. Now, I'll get over to the passives real quick and make sure the whole camera's not in the way of anything for you there as well. As far as passives go, I'll go over these quickly, and you can kind of just look into what they do yourselves and understand them more. But the main page for the Acolyte, your base page, increased flat damage, of course. We got increased minion damage. We got additional armor, minion armor, just one. We got additional intelligence, which scales everything, plus the necrotic resistance, which will go off the bone clamor barbute, which will scale. So you got 14 there. We've got 1 out of 10 over here for Mani of Mortality, which gives you ward gain of nearby death. That could be for your enemy, ally, or minion. So that's a little bit extra, but you have to kind of proc into that to hit to this. Now this is beautiful, 40% ward retention. Necrotic and poison resistance scales off this, and that's why we've capped everything. Now I've tried and tested all of these, and I think this is the best setup and the best bet for this specifically. But again, just build how you feel you should build, and as long as you're happy with your build, just build how you want to build. But this is friggin' insane. So you see we've got increased damage here, 6. We've actually got increased 60% damage here. Health drain per second is 5%, and we've got a few health draining skills in our build. However, this node is very, very important. So it's called Crimson Gluttony. You and your minions have increased health regeneration, and affects that drain a percentage of your health drain less. So we got 25% increased health regen for ourselves. Minion regen is 25%, which is not really essential, but for the parasites and everything else moving across the map, they last longer. Vanguards can do more damage over time. And then the reduced health drain is 25%. So it'll cover all our health regaining just with this, but it is just insanely good. And then on top of all of that, we got Veins of Power, increased physical damage, increased minion physical damage, increased bleed duration, so the bleed lasts even longer, allowing us to do more damage, and also the minion bleed duration. Now, do you remember I showed you that on the sacrifice of the bleed? So no matter what, the enemies are always bleeding anyway, and the bleeds last longer, so you can do even flat more 45% damage over and over and over, which is just insane. And then on top of that, we go for Necromancer. This one I found is really cool. So if you go 5 into here, you get additional health, number 1. But if you read it, whenever you drink a potion, basically you're imbued with hunger. You gain cast speed, and your minions as well. So you and your minions. So the minions will come out fast and do more, whatever they're doing. If they do normal attacks, and you get buffed as well. You buff yourself with the spell damage, the Rip Blood, and you buff the spell damage for the global spell damage. So it all just synergizes perfect. Now, where I mentioned the other one about mana and minions dying, giving you ward. This one, Reclamation of Souls. You have increased ward retention, number 1, which is a bonus. And you and your minions are granted ward whenever your minions die. So whenever the minions die, any minions as well. So again, the parasites, vanguards, the bone minion, the volatile zombies, anytime they die, you're always going to get ward from. It's absolutely amazing. And then last but not least, this is more of a tricky one. In this one, you want to go Apocrypha. 10 out of 10. Intelligence will scale the whole build. Mana regen, very important again. You want a little bit of health and spell damage, claimed on health. You also get it as far as your passives go, but I definitely recommend putting a little bit of points into that so you get everything. Plus, spells and melee damage get increased to your missing health. So the more HP you lose, hence why we wanted a low life build, we get more damage anyway. And then what I've done is I kind of balanced it. Because with this, we've got everything sort of covered. Our survivability and HP is normally kind of on the higher end of things. So, reason why I've gone through in here, we get 15% increased damage off base. So no matter what, we always get 15%. However, if you read this part, effect tripled at low life. So if for any reason we take a big hit or big damage or we're at low life, we're all going to do triple that. So that's 45% damage rather than the 15. But we're guaranteeing doing 15 anyway, so that just scales really, really well. And whereas I mentioned bleed to your minions doing bleed on top of the build, we've got a bleed chance on our build itself, as well as a Rip Blood, and our minions also got a chance to bleed. However, we've got this additional minion bleed chance at 7%. So no matter what minion it is, they can kind of have a chance to cause bleed, which causes more procs. We've gone into this one for vitality, increased health regen as well, and the minion health regen is again not important, but for our survivability and scaling our damage and having our resistances, since vitality goes for poison resistance also, definitely important for your survivability. So not only we've got mega damage or mega tanking, we've got a lot of survivability with the build as well. We're also going for closing wounds, so increased damage again, 42%, massive buff. Current health drain per second is only 3%, and I mentioned we got several drained effect spells, but because we popped into that one important node I said, Crimson Gluttony, kind of counteracts all that, and that's why I found the perfect balance. We got crippling insight, which gives him 16 intelligence and the reduced health regen. But again, we covered that with our own health regen, which is on the red ring as well. We've got this as well, 8 out of 8, 3 plagues. We got additional physical penetration for that mega damage. We've got necrotic penetration for that mega damage, and we also got poison penetration for that mega damage. So we covered all of that, and that's why the build does everything in regards to big hits, big crits, big ailment damage, and damage over time. Also, Deathbringer very important. You get 50% crit chance in here, as well as cast speed to buff you, which buffs everything else. We've also got additional crit chance in here, and also if you notice, ward gain and critical strike. So not only are we getting ward from several different ways of getting it, we're also getting it from every single hit we do from crits. And because we're always critting with this build, we're always getting ward no matter what. And then this crit strike multiplier, I've gone for a flat 50 because I want to go for as much damage as DPS, and I've covered every single node I believe for damage and DPS, bar the 2 I'll show you now. But as far as crits go and everything, I've covered all the DPS nodes, and we've kind of skipped the base ones that I don't think are that valuable in the build per se. Now this is really good. You can go 1 point into it, gives you 10 flat spell, which will scale everything, which is amazing. But you could go 5 if you want to mess around with some other points or change your build for a certain way. I did actually go for max of this, and you can go for this as well. Now the only difference between these two, if you only got 1 point spare, you can get 10 flat off this, but you only get a flat 7. And I've already got a lot of increased damage over time, so instead of me losing a bit of spell damage, I'm going for 1 in here. But you can go for this if you wish. You can go 5 and 5 this at 8 for the 8, which is good. But again, I've tried and tested this several times in the stream and tweaked everything, I believe, to perfection. But again, your build is going to be different because of what you've got. So just tweak it to how you feel and what works best for you. And everyone builds differently as well. And I've also gone for this one again, mind over body. 20 intelligence, so it's a lot of intelligence scaling. And we are current health drain is a lot, but again, we've covered that already with that. So that covers that for you. Now, I'm going to quickly go over the last few things with it, because I mentioned a few things. So if you look at my spell damage for now, out of Lich form, it'll probably go lower. So out of Lich form, spell damage says 651. Now, give me a few seconds and Lich form will come back in a second. However, when we perform all these buffs, it says 895. However, if I can time it correctly, yeah, it says 985. Now it's going to go a little bit lower. But basically, at 985, we only need 15 spell damage to reach 1,000. So with this alone, we only have to proc this twice, and that'll give us 1,000 spell damage. So I think you should be able to see all of these, but if there's anything covered, I'll make sure I can remove the camera for you. But a couple of notes just to go over. 1,000 spell damage when we go into reperform. So every time we go into reperform, when we proc our buffs and we start fighting and doing a normal mission, basically, it will just scale up. Yeah, 985 spell damage, which will be 1,000 spell damage. Off base, we have 381 crit strike multiplier. I mentioned all the resistances which is covered. However, you want crit strike avoidance covered as well. So 100% crit strike avoidance. Endurance is 20 as well, and the rest of the damage multipliers are there for you. So we've got increased damage over time. So since we've got all those ailments, we're doing that. And then the spell damage we've covered as well. And cast speed is 44. Now, something else I really wanted to go over quickly for you as well. So if you can kind of see where it says movement speed 52. Whereas I mentioned use transplant 170. So we actually have 117 movement speed when we go into Lich form and use transplant. So that kind of converts everything for you. But that, folks, is the build itself. All of these again will go up. You sometimes see the sacrifice go up to 300,000 off base off the stats, especially in Lich form, and you see all the numbers go up. But even off base form, I was going to mention, the damage number is insane. So you don't have to even be in reperform, which I've shown you some of the video tutorials and the breakdowns. Even without like Lich form or reperform, you're just insanely strong, hella invincible. As soon as you pop transplant, you got that second of invincibility, and you only need to wait 2 seconds more, 2.1 seconds exactly, to get that transplant again. So even if for any reason you feel you're without it, you can do that. But again, just even with all this Lich form and the buffs, just the amount of damage just keeps going up, and you'll see just different numbers each time. It is absolutely insane. But there you go, folks. That is my Queen of Sacrifice Lich build as requested for you guys. I'm working on several other builds at the moment, so if you want any more insight to the build, or you want to just chat about any more builds that I'm working on, just join the streams. I stream on Twitch every day. Links will be in the description below. If you want to support the Twitch channel in any way, shape or form, you can follow the channel. You can sub, you can gift a sub, you can tip, you can donate, and you support my YouTube channel. Or if you want to support my YouTube channel in any way, shape or form, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, you can comment on the video, you can like a video, and if there's any other specific builds you want me to make for you, I can do that for you as well. But apart from that, thanks for the time wherever you are. Have a good morning, have a good night, have a good evening. I will catch you on the next one. Take it easy, and peace out.